Hi, everybody. Welcome to our ongoing webinar series with the Bodhana group. I am one of your facilitators tonight, James. I'm sure you've seen me on a bunch of the other trainings because you all have watched every single one of them and you can't wait for the new ones to come out. Tonight, I am going to be joined by strange faces, and I will let them introduce themselves momentarily. But this evening, we are going to be talking about sports games. Tabletop, sports-themed gaming. So I think best thing to do here is to get at it. Yeah, here we are. So this is our family webinar series, the Treehouse. Tonight we are going to be introducing you to March Sports Ball Maniadness.
Woo! Yay!
Good. I'm going to wait until it gets the cheer it deserves. So introductions, who we are, what the deal is. I'm, like I said, James Kirk. I am one of the therapeutic GMs with the Bodhana group. I don't care that the Colts moved. I wasn't necessarily a fan when they were the Baltimore Colts. I've been a fan when they're the Indianapolis Colts. And then why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves?
All at once, or?
I mean, they're not going to understand it all at once, but you could do that.
Right, so I'm Chad Baker, better known as Baker, the Minion. Been around Bodhana for 5 years, I guess, and lover of all things tabletop and all things sports. So I guess I kind of fit pretty well for this.
Yeah, it seems like you check all the boxes. Baker is also represented by the Sea Chickens, or the Seattle Seahawks banner there on the right. And then you, sir, that hasn't spoken. Go ahead.
I'm Corey Reese. I've been, might have seen me at Save Against Fear. I help out there whenever I can and whenever it's around. I've been into board games for a number of years now. Yes, I do believe eagles can fly. They have recently. I'm sure they can do it again someday.
Careful, you're going to make me a believer. All right, so although we did get your guy.
Yeah.
Or the guy that was supposed to be your guy but isn't your guy. The guy. Sports fans know what I'm talking about. All right. So, Bodhana, we have services. You should know about them. We do offer board game programs like the one that's pictured here. We used to run at 6 Feet Under Games for the Tommy Foundation. We will be running these live events again once we are all able to sit next to other people in real life. We also offer therapeutic role-playing groups. I mentioned I was a therapeutic GM. That is another one of our main services where we run tabletop games for adjunct therapy and skill building. We do have consultations and trainings. We can help you design a program for your service. Or maybe you want to learn how to do TTRPGs. Or email, whichever one. We'll talk about that later. Resource development. Point you in the direction of what games you should buy. Or maybe talk about the games that you're running now. Give some tips, give some pointers. Consult, I think, is the official term. We also have the Save Against Fear convention every year. This year, it will be virtual. This will be the last year that it will be virtual, probably. We will likely look to combine both the real and the virtual, kind of like the Matrix. That'll be in later years. And then the Wizards, Warriors, and Wellness book, which is a book that was written in-house that talks about the principles of therapeutic tabletop RPG and role-playing. That's us. But now we're going to talk about why we're here. Because why talk about sports games? Why, guys? Why are we talking about sports games?
Everybody loves games. Everybody loves sports. Well, not everybody.
Does everybody love sports?
Yeah.
No.
Everybody loves to have fun.
I mean, you guys are my friends. I knew this. But within the organization, there are very few people that know the sports ball.
This is true.
or like really want to talk about it at all. So not a lot of sports fans, but a lot of tabletop fans. One of the nice things is the fact that games, as you've been watching these trainings with us, have a variety of different skills and things that they can help develop and learn. So with the idea of sports have a wealth of different skills and social development norms that we can also find in games. So if somebody is not playing a sport, or maybe they didn't want to try out because sports can sometimes seem very intimidating, or something that they're going to try out and they're going to get laughed at, or they have a lot of confidence and they try out, but they just, for whatever reason, they don't make the team, because teams are very selective sometimes about the people that join them. Maybe they don't have an interest in sports. They don't care about go local sports team. So a myriad of reasons why this might happen. And the reason for us to get together tonight is so that we can talk to parents and families and things. That there are crossover. There's plenty of correlation between playing sports and then playing games, and we're going to highlight some sports-themed games to sort of marry the two together after we're done talking about this. So there are many touch goals within the realm of sports and sports gaming. So sports can confer teamwork. That seems right. There are some players that I know these days that I would question that development. But I mean, it's there. You have to work as a team or a unit because you're trying to get a job done. Healthy competition. It is just as easy to foster toxic competition in sports. But the idea of healthy competition, what does that mean to you guys? Healthy competition.
It's something that drives us, something that gives us something to work for, but without being, so tied up in it that if you're not on top, that you feel like garbage.
Yeah, fair enough. And I was part of several baseball teams and one softball team growing up. Some of the baseball teams, because of the coaching, were focused more on win than learning the game and having a good time with your friends. Mm-hmm. So I've experienced both sides of the coin where, yeah, it's great to win, but at what cost? You've got to foster those other things, the teamwork, the camaraderie, all the other things that we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
As a part of the competition.
I really feel like that dynamic of teams that have the hardcore coaches versus the teams that kind of embrace the idea of sport, really well laid out in the Mighty Ducks.
Yeah.
Mighty Ducks movie.
Right.
Camaraderie, getting along with your fellow people, understanding that they're people. There's an honorable way, and this is addressed with further down the list too. There's an honorable way to play a game, and then a dishonorable way to play a game. And I think that camaraderie extends to not just the people that are on your team, but even your opponents. Being able to accord respect to the other team. Again, that idea of healthy competition. I think all sports players, we know that it's supposed to be, it's labeled good-natured ribbing. That happens. It doesn't necessarily come off as good-natured. But trash talking, which is easy to do when your team is up, which is probably the only time you should be doing it. Those people that don't, they know who they are. But I think the idea that like, you know, after the game handshake, not just a sportsmanship thing, it's a camaraderie thing. It's recognizing that all of you are basically enjoying the same sport together, which is something nice. It's something special.
Right.
You know, to be able to have that. Did you guys get any self-esteem from playing sports?
I mean, yeah, that depended on the team that I was on. Honestly, and it went back to the coaches, who I had for coaches during the different years, kind of drove that.
I'm getting a theme here that a lot of what you get out of sports kind of depends on the coaches that you have involved.
Yeah, it seems like, I mean, they definitely set the tone.
Yeah, self-esteem is definitely something that you can develop in sports. It is also, if not fostered correctly, definitely easy to lose self-esteem, if not developed with some sensitivity. I think that goes hand in hand with confidence. You know, just in baseball, grabbing a bat and striding to the plate, knowing that you're gonna crush this cowhide sphere somewhere,
or it's gonna end up in the mitt behind you 3 times.
Either way, you are confident of the outcome.
Right.
Yeah. Sportsmanship and fair play is really what we talked about. Like this, sports on the whole, I think, does completely disparage cheating. It's just not, it's not a thing that anybody wants to see happen. Professional sports, sometimes it happens. And then, thank you. But I also think those people get called for it when it happens. And I think sports from professional play all the way down have kind of an agreed, like, if you're going to win, you do it the right way.
Yeah. Otherwise, you know, what's the point?
Right. Communication. We're talking to each other. What sorts of communicating might one learn? And by the way, folks, these are hot takes from these guys because they have not seen the questions.
Say that again. What about communication? What was your question?
What sort of communication skills do you develop playing sports?
I mean, I would say how, like, as it revolves around coordination with your team on, you know, what specifically you want to accomplish.
Yep.
And how to get, you know, how to convey what you want to happen at any given moment.
So being able to express goals clearly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Some of it's game dependent too. Baseball, there's a lot of nonverbal communication with signs between catcher and pitcher, between coaches and batters and runners and things like that. You know, you can't be shouting out, "Hey, steal second base," because then they're going to pick you off.
Right.
You can't communicate to the batter that, "Hey, you got a bunt right now," or they're gonna be ready for you.
Bunt! They're all standing back because they think you're gonna switch. No, don't move. Ah,
shucks.
Now we gotta do something different. Football has its own language at the line of scrimmage. Teams develop, very famously, the Peyton Manning Omaha.
That's not too much secret anymore.
No, it isn't. But teams develop their own language to be able to communicate at the line while not letting the defense know what it is they're talking about. If crowds are really noisy, they have to develop nonverbal communication with signs and the like to be able to let everybody know, hey, this is the play we're doing. Or like, we talked about the play when we were in the huddle, but now I need you to change it. So I need you to listen up because I'm about to tell you something. So they do these like nonverbal cues, which is pretty cool. There aren't a lot of games to really develop interpersonal nonverbal cues outside of sign language, right? Like, so the ability for a team to be able to develop their own language within the team is kind of a unique thing for sports because it's done regularly. And there's a lot of core skills of leadership, that are developed. The ability to be an ambassador on the field and off the field, and what that means. Being an example for the rest of the people in the locker room, taking on responsibility for maybe players that are new, like showing the rookies the ropes, so to speak, and not in a hazing fashion. What other types of leadership skills do you guys see out of sports teams?
Another one that's real famous for it is J.J. Watt, setting up charity work and stuff like that. His was specific to Houston Hurricane a couple years back, but he does a lot of other stuff like that. And there's a ton of players in every sport that do things like that.
Yeah, very famously and very recently, Drew Brees, who was the quarterback of the New Orleans Saints, retired and said when he announced it that he was retiring from football, but he was in no way retiring from New Orleans. Which I that's cool.
Yeah.
Like I don't see that happen a lot. That was pretty neat. And one thing that I want to mention to this is, do not view these as exclusive only to sports. Right? Like, you can play tabletop games and some of the stuff that we're going to talk about to develop these skills. It may not necessarily be in the same fashion, but all of these things can be developed through play, as well as being on a team. Because essentially, you are playing a game when you are playing a sport. So it's not that big of a stretch to do that. So I thought what we would do is take some time to kind of highlight some games that are sports themed, that you could bring to the table and have different aspects of this stuff. Like with all games, when you're doing skill building, it's usually not one thing. Like, you don't point to one of these games and be like, that is the game for confidence. Like, yes, you just confidently said that, but it doesn't mean that it's just for confidence, right? These games will usually work on multiple skills at one time. So in our starting lineup, the first thing I want to talk about is Blood Bowl, specifically because I know we've had more experience with Blood Bowl Team Manager. But Blood Bowl was developed originally by Games Workshop, the people that did Warhammer, because they decided to take their fantasy property and be like, I wonder what this would look like on a football field. So it was minis. And you played a game of football, rolling dice and making decisions and moving your minis across the pitch, the field, trying to score touchdowns. Ball's got spikes on it. Don't catch it the wrong way. And all of these different races were good at certain things and not so good at certain things. So later, Fantasy Flight Games developed a card game, a sort of deck builder. In a way, there's not a ton of deck building. It's more like team building, I think, than necessarily deck building. Called Blood Bowl Team Manager, where each player takes on the role of a coach, coaching one of these teams: orcs, humans, dark elves, undead like skeleton zombie things, vampires. Really cool. And you compete against other players to try to score enough points to win, little Pyrrhic victories along the way, and then trying to get to the bowl games to get the cups, to be able to score more fans and get more stuff. And along the way, you get to build, your front office, and you get upgrades that are like kind of global effects and team effects that you can use during the course of the game to give you bonuses and edges and things of that nature. And You play with a hand of cards, and each of your card is a different football player that has a different ability. So players take turns kind of laying them out at these different football fields. If there's 4 players, there's 4 fields. And there's only 1 player on each side of the field. And if you didn't get to lay at one of these fields, well, that's your fault. What do you guys think about this one? Because I know both of you have played this.
I've definitely played it. It's been a number of years, and there were probably adult beverages involved. I have almost no memory of it.
Okay.
That might have been the same game I was on. But I refresh my memory. Is there, like, I don't think I played the team manager one, though. I seem to remember a board, I think, right? You say
the board was regular Blood Bowl with the miniatures.
Yes.
Team manager, you set up a field with a number of football fields equal to the number of players. And then players can lay at any of those fields. Once you have placed one of your people on that side of the field, no other player can be there on your side. They can go on the opposite side. So one of the things that you want to prevent is being shut out of a field. But at that point, then you're just kind of laying back and forth. You're like, well, I got this guy that does this to your team. Oh, yeah? Well, I'm going to play this guy that steals the football and causes a fumble. Well, I'm going to try to tackle that guy. And it's just one up and one up and one up.
Yeah.
Until you calculate the score at the end of the round. And you're looking for star power. Whoever has the most star points there wins that matchup. And as you play, you can add star players to your deck, which creates more cards in your deck. You only get 12 cards in total, and you play with a hand of 6 each round. Yeah, and it plays with football rules, so you learn some basic football rules and terminology along the way. Sometimes there's a global effect that goes off where, it says like, all of the balls are enchanted and they do weird things. And then you have to figure out what those weird things are. So yeah, it's a pretty cool game. I think it's a really neat mashup of fantasy creatures. Like, who doesn't want a defensive line full of orcs?
Right.
Like large slobbering orcs. I'll take that. So yeah, it's a pretty neat property. It's got a fairly high strategy value. There's a lot of strategic planning involved. You need to be able to adapt during the game, because depending on what's in your hand is what you have to play with that round. So make the best of it.
This is also a game that I know that there are several non-sports fans that enjoy the game.
Yeah, a lot of expansions. It's a big game. And I clicked the button, so that means we're going to talk about Book It. Book It is a wrestling promotion game from Foamhammer. So it uses a deck building mechanic, kind of like Blood Bowl Team Manager. Everybody gets a starting deck with certain number of cards in it. And you have to pick a wrestling style. Is your promotion like a Japanese strong style? Or are you a lucha libre, sports entertainment? And after you pick your style, you travel to different locations putting on shows. And Corey, why don't you talk a little bit about this, because I know you own this one. And
it's kind of like you were saying with Blood Bowl. It's kind of like you're a manager in this case of a wrestling promotion. So you go through a couple of rounds and you're actually drafting wrestlers for your promotion. And so you're kind of competing with the other players to get wrestlers, and each card has stats on it. So you want to try to get cards that match up with what you're trying to do and with the other cards that you've acquired, while also trying to keep your opponents from getting cards that would maybe really help them too. So there's definitely a lot to this, as far as, you know, for if you're newer at it, you're just kind of going to be looking at yourself, you know, what do I need for this? But as you get more familiar with the game, you might be looking more at what can I do to stop my competitors, you know, that kind of thing. And yeah, so it's definitely more of a manager type of role in that one.
And I thought it was neat that this game makes you pay attention to not just like, it's not all about having the wrestlers that have like the highest number of stars. Because you could have a wrestler that has like 5 stars, like it's a really popular wrestler, but then they also have like a work rating, how much of a worker they are, and they might have 5 stars and a worker rating of 0, which means that you're going to get a lot of money for people coming to pay to see that fight and to see that wrestling match. But if they don't have a high work rating, you're not going to get a lot of stars for that match. It's not going to be rated well, because you can't put a guy that's not a good worker up against somebody that is a good worker, because it doesn't pan out, you know. And then
you can't just get these guys and then put them together. It is a deck building type of mechanic, so they're just going to be shuffled in, and depending on how they come out, you can't plan for it for sure. So that's why you got to kind of know who all you got, who all's in your deck, and who's going to work well together. And each card, like you said, has a couple different the work rating, the stars, what's the word, values, resources. It's almost like resource management kind of, but just stats, almost like a baseball card or something. Each wrestler has their own stats. Then you got to get cards that will work well with the rest of the cards in your deck,
which is great, because you start to learn like strengths and weaknesses, and you start to look in your hand of like, all right, this guy doesn't have a really high star value, but how can I cover that up? Like, how can I make up for the fact that this guy has like a good work rating, but he doesn't have great stars? Well, I can put him with this person because the work rating will even out, and this guy has more stars, which will give you a better, like, you start to figure out kind of like how to construct these matches to get the most out of it that you can. It's pretty neat. And then you can get dirt sheet cards that will let you like injure other wrestlers and take them out of matches before they happen and make the other people at the table angry at you.
So would that be considered poor sportsmanship to play that tactic? Now, in this case, I mean, it is part of the game, so
yes.
But I mean,
nobody wants to see anyone get injured ever. If it happens, that's unfortunate. Baker, do you have anything you would like to add about Book It?
I do not. I played it twice. It was fun.
All right, then. Good. Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. All right.
I'm terrible at it. Yeah.
Downforce, game of high stakes speed. Downforce was published by Renegade Games. Baker, can I interest you in talking about Downforce?
Downforce is very interesting because you are going to be racing cars, but you don't know what cars you're going to be racing until you start the game and purchase your cars at auction. So you buy your cars through a mechanic in the game, and then you use cards to advance those cars along a racetrack, which, Corey, I think the game comes with 4 tracks.
That sounds right.
Is it 4 or is it just the 2? One double-sided?
I thought it was
2, and then there's an expansion.
Yeah, because I've got 2 of the expansions, so I'm not sure which ones were just base game.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Okay, well then maybe it is 2, and then you need the expansions to get more tracks.
Yeah, that could be. But anyway, they all have some little differences. Some are they have little, what do you call it, bottlenecks that'll force you to make certain moves. You got to kind of be strategic about how you move your cars around the racetrack. You move other people's cars too when you play your cards, and the idea is to bet on your car, well, whatever cars you think are going to win, to make money, and also to get your cars to win the race to make money, and whoever makes the most money at the end of the race wins.
Right. So this is a mix of like racing and Pete Rose, really, because you're betting on your own sport. At that point. But the mechanic for it is very neat. In the beginning of the game, you basically, like, each of the colors of cars comes up for auction, and you take a look at your hand. And as you're looking at your hand, you're like, oh man, I have a whole lot of cards that'll like move the red car. I should really buy the red car because I'm going to get the most value out of that if the red car wins, and I can move the red car a whole bunch of times during this game. So when the red car comes up, you're like, oh, red car! You know, and everybody like puts a card face down that has a value on it, and you flip it over, and if you had the highest value, you get that car. Sometimes you find out that you have grossly overpaid for that car, because everybody laid down like, I get a 2, I get a 0, then you're like, I have a 7. Crap. Totally could have gotten this for 4.
Yeah.
You know? But hey, chance you take.
Risk management.
And then based on how much you've paid for the cars that you own for the duration of the race, that's how much you have to try to make back, and then some, you know, to be able to come out the winner. I also like that the game lets you like kind of make a wager at the beginning, but then halfway through the race, the game's just basically like, are you sure? You know, and you get to then pick again, like, you know, now which car is going to win. But you get less reward for being right about the middle of the race as opposed to predicting it at the beginning. And yeah, Baker's absolutely right. The moving strategy is such that like the cards themselves can sometimes have 5 different cars on one card that are all moving a different number of spaces. Maybe yours is moving the most number of spaces, but you're also moving like 4 other cars along with it. So you have to be careful and kind of decide when you're gonna, you know, now I can take the advantage and I'm gonna kick this into high gear. So that's a neat mechanic too. Corey, anything else that you want to say about downforce?
Yeah, I just say that it's a great, I want to say simple, but not in a bad way. I mean, it has some strategy to it. There's power-ups that you also get when you buy your car at auction. And, but I mean, I don't know if offhand what the ages are for this, but I mean, it's really great for anyone, even someone who's just a casual gamer, because there's not a lot of complexity to the game mechanics. Yeah. It's really just you're playing a card, and it has the color and a number on it, and you move that color car that many spaces. And it's visually neat to see at a table. It's got a decent table presence because the tracks are very colorful, look neat, and they got these really cool little F1 car miniatures that you move around the board and stuff. So yep, it's really it's a good game.
Yeah, it's a slick game. I like that.
Billy likes it too.
And then there was Dungeon Derby. Dungeon Derby was put out by Rabbiteer, and so think some of the principles of downforce, right? Like, except that you play one of the racers like the whole game. You kind of get to pick which one you get, because all of the racers at the beginning of the game, it's just cosmetic. There's no big advantage for, you know, playing the giant ogre with the spiked steamroller versus playing the wolf rider or the shark with a cannon, you know. But you pick which racer you want, and the board is the racetrack. It's just, 6 stalls or individual lines. And then players have the opportunity beforehand when they get dealt cards. Some of them are traps that they can play and then set traps in some of those lines at the beginning. You can give people face down what are called armor cards. And those armor cards might be really good, or it might be a sack full of rocks that weighs down that particular racer for that one race. And before those cards are revealed, or before anybody manipulates the race with magic, because some of the cards in your hand might be spells, everybody has to take tokens that they have that are worth gold, and place some bets, some anonymous bets on some of the racers. You can bet on more than one racer. And then what I like is that unless there's magic being played, this game is very random. It's just a die roll. There's a die with all of the racers on it, and there's a die 1 through 6. You roll both dice. Whichever racer comes up, they get to move that many spaces in their particular line. So, nifty little game that, doesn't... it's not all beholden to that, like, I who have the best plan will win all of the games.
Right, because something somebody else did to the race may affect what you just did to the race.
Yeah, and my racer might not come up on that die a whole lot of times. Or
Right.
it will, but they rolled a 1. So I went, boop.
That's kind of like downforce too, right? You can still win by betting on the right people, even if it's not you, right?
Yes.
Yes, which is also really cool. Like, you don't have to bet on yourself. So that's an interesting component as well. In the fact that, like, just sometimes you have to admit, like, I'm not doing this one. This ain't happening.
I only played this game, I think, once, and then I watched it played maybe 2 or 3 times. And I don't own this one, but just from all those experiences, this game is a hoot.
Yep.
I mean, just watching it was hilarious, and it's a good time.
You want to watch a group of people actually sound like they're at the track?
Yeah.
Like, wait until this starts, because one person is the dungeon master for that particular round, and they're the one that rolls the dice every time. They start rolling dice like, come on, roll the Minotaur. Why do you never roll the Minotaur? You're not moving.
It's like, simultaneously standing around a craps table and at the pay window of a horse track.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. I've seen these games get very vocal. Communication skills. Look at that. I can't have a sports themed thing without talking about Throw Burrito. This was a whole bunch of people that were in this, Exploding Kittens, Asmodee Italia, ADC Blackfire Entertainment. I think there was like a 4th company that was involved in this. So if you look on the picture of the box there, it says a dodgeball card game. That is exactly what this is. If you look on the box, there are little soft, squishy burritos that sit on the table. And players take turns, like, drawing cards, and it's kind of like rummy. You're trying to make sets of cards to score points. And during the course of the game, people will play burrito cards that cause burrito wars. And it might be a burrito duel, which is 2 people. And I'm not kidding you. Have either of you guys played this one?
I refereed a tournament at Save.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't remember if you played or not, but I knew you were involved with it. It's basically like a burrito duel is 2 people that stand, like, back to back, and you have to do the walk 3 paces and then turn around and huck your burrito at the other person trying to hit them. And if you can bean people with these squishy soft burritos, you actually get to steal points from them out of their hand. That's the whole reason that you initiate these burrito fights. And there are duels, but then there are also just massive free-for-alls that are the whole table. Like, everybody throw burritos! Ah! You know, it's nuts, man. Like, who thought
you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a burrito.
Dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge. Yeah, like these guys were like, imagine this. They were developing this game and they just sat down and they were like, you know what I've always wanted to do when I was playing a card game is dodge stuff being thrown at me. You know, but so I like this because I think out of all of these sports themed games, there's a lot of sports themed games that like try to take the essence of what those games are or teach the strategies that are involved in the game. Teaching how to identify like the right players to put in the right positions, that sort of stuff. There are very few sports themed games that are like, we're playing this on a table, but during the game, you're going to have to get up and actually like do a thing. Right? Like Blood Bowl, you don't go outside and play football. Right? Like it's all handled by the cards. I really like this game because it forces you to get up and like do things. And it's the one sport that I think I can collectively say out of all of the people here, none of us wanted to play. Like I know I didn't.
Oh no, I love to play dodgeball.
Did you?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. We played an actual game called Battle Ball that used deflated volleyballs, and they hurt.
Oh man, I'm starting to lose Baker's feed here. I had that very quintessential chubby kid experience with dodgeball. Because I wasn't great at it. I didn't move so good. You know, I'm actually better at it now, you know, than I was. It was weird.
You just have to get really good at catching them.
Yeah. I was always uncomfortable because they would inevitably be flying at my face. It was easier to try to get out of the way than to try to catch them and miss and take it in the face.
Yeah.
But I mean, that honestly, that's throw burrito. Those are the mechanics. I mean, Baker refed one of these. You can tell me if I'm like really missing anything, but it's not a complicated game.
It's super simple to learn. Everybody just has to learn the rules for how the cards match up and stuff, and then you just go.
Yeah. And the fact that you can play a rummy style game and then add in dodgeball is just very entertaining to me. I'm going to say this as a like kind of a PSA because there should be one that comes with this game. Please have the proper space for this. This is not in the dining room with the china cabinet.
Nope.
I said that these are squishy, like soft burritos. You are still throwing things. Right? So like just be cognizant of the space that you have. Make sure that you have enough area around wherever you're playing this. I feel like I should say that. Because some people might not.
Yeah, this would be a good like outside picnic game.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we had people running all the way through save in a duel.
Yeah.
Got some attention for the game. Put it that way.
So the last game I want to mention tonight is kind of a retro game. I had talked with this with the guys before we came on. But this was a game that was a centerpiece in my childhood called Superstar Baseball. Sports Illustrated Games put this out. And it was, there's like 90 odd players in the game that you can draft from. And you basically build a baseball team. And you build a team that's either like very defensively strong or has really good pitching, or maybe your hitting's really good. Maybe you're like solid in each of the areas, but you don't have one that you're like amazing at. And then you use the dice that you see pictured there with the tokens to roll on charts that are on the board. And those charts will tell you what your pitcher does. And if your pitcher doesn't automatically like strike out the opponent, then the opponent gets to swing away and they get to roll in the batter's box to see what their batter does with the pitch. Aside from just being a fun dice rolling game, I learned all kinds of stuff playing this. I learned what the numbers of the positions were in a baseball game. The fact that third base, I thought it would be labeled as number 6 going around the diamond. No, third base is 5. Shortstop is 6. Okay. I learned that all of the positions had numbers. You know, it made me understand when I watched baseball, and somebody said that there was a 5-4-3 double play. That meant that the third baseman got the ball, threw it to second base to get the runner out, and then second base threw it to first base to get the second out. Huh. I learned a code. I learned abbreviations for all the different stuff that happens in baseball. A lot of nifty stuff that I learned. I learned how to calculate batting averages and earned run averages for pitchers, and just keeping stats. Like, it turned me into a statistician, which I don't know. I really enjoyed that. Made my math smart. But I have a lot of fun memories playing this at the park that we went to, and I just wanted to bring it up for me. Do you guys have any games that you were like, maybe like sports themed that you played when you were younger that were not sports? Don't just say like, oh, I played baseball. Maybe something at the tabletop that was kind of sports themed.
Well, there was a similar game to this, but it was way less involved, which I had just a pack of cards that you flipped over. It was single, double, triple, but we made a game board for it, and kind of like you're talking about where you draft players, we drafted our baseball cards and used them to mark the place around the field where they were and everything, and then kept stats and all that kind of stuff. So we kind of made this game up, but
wow,
just with a deck of cards.
Look at you, creative kids. Corey, that might be a tough act to follow. What do you got, buddy?
I can't recall anything really.
Did you create a sports game?
No, I did not.
Slacker.
I didn't create much back then.
Problems from my parents. That was about it. So with that, that's basically what we wanted to highlight for tonight. Just some things that, sports and games share in common. Give you some idea of some sports themed tabletop games that you can bring to your, family game night or whatever it might be. So you can find us if you want to find more information about us. www.thebodhanagroup.org is our main website where you can find all of the information about all of our things. You can also email us, thebodhanagroup@gmail.com. We are the Bodhana Group on Facebook and at the Bodhana Group for the tweets on Twitter. Save Against Fear, we will continue to have more information about that as time goes on. Like I said in the beginning, it is going to be virtual this year. So this recording might end up being dated at some point, but there you go. And you can order the Wizards, Warriors, and Wellness book on Drive-Thru RPG. We do have an upcoming part 2 of Wizards, Warriors, and Wellness that is going to take board gaming and give that the same treatment that we gave RPGs in the first one. That is currently being worked on, but will be put out here shortly. And I am going to go ahead and bring us back. Hey, thanks for coming, guys. I'm talking about sports games and being sports fans with me. That's fun.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for inviting.
Another cool tidbit is the three of us also share like close birthdays, which is fun.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like a little birthday sports club. Sports.
Yay, sports.
Let's be careful there.
I from all of us to all of you, may your local sports team do well and hit many touch goals. And we will be back next week with another training class. As far as I know, at the end of this, am still James Kirk. This is Corey, where you and Baker say goodbye.
And I'm Corey Reese. Thanks again for having me.
And Baker signing off.
Outstanding, gentlemen. All right. We'll see you next time, everybody. Have a great night. Happy gaming. Happy playing. Be well.